Happy Monday. Welcome back to Retake the Week. Man, I kind of hate being home. I mean, a lot of people always talk about this when they come back from holiday. Like, take me back, take me back. You don't understand. Coming off the mountains, 7 days in the Alps, and smelling that disgusting London smell, and we're realizing, wow, I live in a poisonous gas cloud of overcrowded nonsense and overpriced wank. Take me back to the currywurst, to the Hefeweizen, and to the skiing slopes. But instead, we're talking Counter-Strike. I can't do that from over there. I wish I could, but at some point I have to come home and talk to Quack again. And hey, Katowice was something. Set us up for quite an interesting year, I think. We got two big dogs right at the top, clashing, battling it out, and really like warping. I think a lot of the narratives we may have already started to establish prior to that grand final. Quack, how much of it did you catch? How much of it did you enjoy?
Quite a bit. I thought the playoff games were quite enjoyable. Particularly the Vitality side of the bracket was really fun. It was a really fun watch. Quite big on the Mongols at the moment. Final was pretty crazy. I wasn't able to catch all of it, of course, but the Mirage was definitely a map. Yeah, it's a crazy win. I just think we're going to talk about this obviously, but it's kind of
we will.
It's kind of crazy that I put this on Twitter and I'm just going to put this here as well. 2024, first event of the year. It's an online blast event. Sorry, no, it's a studio blast event. And, Spirit rock up with a pretty weak showing. They have some stand-ins. They go out. Then they rock up to Katowice and 3-0, the big favorites for the win.
Vitality, you mean?
No. 2024. 2025.
Oh, right.
First event of the year. Yes, it's a studio blast event.
Yeah.
And, Vitality rock up, and they have a shaky showing. They go out early against Eternal Fire, and then they rock up to Katowice and 3-0, the big favorites to the entire event in the final. So we're having a repeat of 2024, basically, and this means that Mouse are going to fluke a major in Austin, and then Vitality are going to win the Budapest major in the fall season. And Nico is going to go to Falcons again.
He's going to go to Falcons again, is he? Yeah.
Yeah.
Going to repeat the action. He's actually going to secretly leave, go play for BC Game for a month, then come back.
It's actually just going to be BC Game. Yeah, BC Game are going to buy Youngster, LNZ, and Senpaias, and they're going to get Nico and Boros.
May that never happen again. Oh Lord.
Heard it here first.
But all right, before we get into all the breakdown, of course, with Katowice, we have a couple other segments. Obviously, the small site, we have the Eternal Shuffle, we have the prospects, all that good stuff. We do have to thank the members. Now, last week's episode did not end up on Spotify because I was literally too busy to do anything of that ilk. It was so bad that I tried to leave my PC on so I could tweet the promo tweet for Retake the Week, and didn't even get around to doing that. That's how much crap I had going on in my personal life. But this week's episode will be on Spotify as well. Thank you to the members for making that possible, and also gaining access to all the different content that I upload there. There were no prospects demos last week. Instead, there was the contributor discussion with contributors able to join. Only one did join, but we had a very long conversation about 4 different topics he brought to the table. Ended up being pretty interesting in my eyes. So check that out. If you're a member, it's available to you. And if you're not a member, become one, and it is. So yeah, that's all the extra content. That's all with the thank yous. Quack, you got anything to announce?
Yeah, I'm with Fragbite now. This has been in the works for a long while, and it's finally done. I'm working for Fragbite now. If you want to read the stuff I write, a lot of it is going to be on Fragbite, and I'm really excited. For at least the next couple of months, I'm going to be there. So I'm actually really excited about that. Doing a couple of nights a week, and there is one thing coming out this week which might actually be interesting with regard to some of the shuffle news. So stay tuned for that.
Okay. All right. Oh, good for that. So, shall we get into Katowice, the big event? And now your point that you've put in here, it relates to your intro. It's obviously, for anyone who watched any CS over the last 5 years, feels a little absurd to make as a projection given who Vitality have been, especially in the most recent 12 months we experienced. But tell me, why do you think Vitality were Team of the Year? Is it just some sort of perennial symmetry or some cyclical events like you trying to predict earlier on? or is there actually something behind this?
What's behind it is I called this in our Eternal Shuffle episode we did just before, well, the big Shuffle episode, Rostermania, we did at the end of last year or start of this year. I said it, like, I thought Vitality plus Rops was such a good move that on paper Vitality definitely are the strongest team at the moment, just on paper, I feel like. So at that point, and I feel like I called it then, like, my Vitality was my number one pick for who was going to be team of the year for 2025, just on paper. Then of course it's Vitality. I wouldn't say that's a sure thing. Spirit still look dangerous. They still look dangerous in Bounty, but it is a very brief point. I just think they're gonna be, like, at this point, Zywoo is absolutely destroying. He seems to have somewhat gotten over, based on this event, he seems to have gotten over the group stage woes. With regard to that, have a little bit of an easier bracket, of course, but he was there. I don't really know. I don't have a lot to elaborate on this. I just think they look really good, and I think Rops has really hit the ground running. I think things look like they're really clicking. It's like all the good stuff of Vitality from last year, except now it's even better because Rops is here.
Yeah, it kind of builds into my point, because my point is entirely around Rops. It has to be, given that map 1, that Dust 2. I was actually watching the POV before we came into the main show. He's hitting... Because we remember the end of last year, the Shanghai major run, where the quarterfinal, the semi-final, absolutely bananas. Like, he's hitting impossible shots, making rounds that seemed unwinnable, winnable. Certain aspects of that were present in that grand final, especially that first map, where he's hitting really, really precise, like, adjustments and flicks. He's making double kills happen when they should be getting 0, really. Like, he's just dry-facing 2 AKs with an MP9, getting both kills in the space of about 8 bullets. That shouldn't be possible. That's just outstanding control and an incredible understanding of the micro of the game, in terms of, bro's got perfect spray control with an MP9. The master of the micro might just be back. Like, that was the sort of title I ascribed to him in CSGO at times, where every little smoke lineup, every little movement detail, everything from spray control to pre-aims, he was always very controlled and effective with it, and he was the master. That seems to be returning, and it was a concern that he didn't feel comfortable in CS2. He felt like, the little movement mechanic problems just throw him off. It seemed like there was something wrong. We might have finally got that back, and as you're saying, it might just mean they will be team of the year. I said it last year throughout. Vitality have the squad to define an era. And if it really was, Spinks is such a massive douchebag, we couldn't, for some reason, play good Counter-Strike with him on the team, despite the talent, despite everything else. Then bring in Rops and having him play like this, and hopefully not be a douchebag, which somehow would magically break everything. Yes, they should go on and define an era. The only problem being, there's multiple teams now that are of that ilk, and who've made the right changes. We do still have Spirit, who, despite not having the extreme depth of firepower, I still think, Zontics, Magics don't impress me as much as they do others. I think they only have Donk and Shira to really rely on to consistently win maps. As much as that major final was cute, Magic's hit some crazy shots, and he had a few highlights here and there. I still don't think he contributes as much, and the way their system's built is more dependent on just a couple individuals. They're still an elite team who will be fighting throughout this year for all the titles. I do think we're slowly starting to see the reality of what I've been predicting for Na'Vi. You had a window. You have this window to make it work. After that, you're going to be, probably battling around phases level. Probably 4th, 5th in the world. Occasionally make a run. Rely on outcalling, rely on a few heroics from players who don't do it very often. Your Brokey will be their JL, that kind of thing. Your Elige is their bit, the one real superstar player you have. Everyone else is just doing a role, relying on some great calls, and occasionally having a highlight. That might be the reality for Na'Vi just getting more and more real as Vitality
and similarly to face having some difficulty in justifying roster moves, I think, because Na'Vi have players who, at least so far, or for the past couple of months, have put up some half-decent ceilings. So far this year, Bit is on a 130.
Yeah, Bit's
Fucking
And Bit's
say?
the only one you can't cut. I'm going to be real. Like Bit's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
one player who's not the IGL you can't cut. He's the only
Yeah,
one with superstar ceiling.
But at the same time, like Emma, Jail, and Wonderful, like they do a good enough job where like you have to make, that's a pretty tough call to make. It's not like you have a 1.0 player who you can just cut. Like you can absolutely just cut with no excuse. Like if you, there's still a thought process behind this, and I think that's the same issue that FaZe have had, because you know, Frozen, Brokey, and Rain, when they are underperforming, they're still Frozen, Brokey, and Rain, and you know they still, much like FaZe, they just still do the bare minimum to not completely crash out, to not be in free fall. And that becomes a difficulty for, that's probably, I would say that's going to become a difficulty for Navi, and it is a difficulty for FaZe. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right there.
Yeah, that's going to be the reality for them. You know, probably give them some credit. They probably have a massive coaching advantage because of having Blade. I just think that they have more consistent X factors on FaZe, and that's why they probably just end up evening out over the long run. But we'll see. I mean, theoretically, we also have teams like G2 who are supposed to be, you know, talent-wise. And as I so correctly kind of goaded / predicted coming into Katowice, you know, if you do have such a good IGL, such a great coach, Heavy God, win Katowice. And you didn't, not even close. So clearly you're shit. I'm sorry. That's the only conclusion I can come to. If everything else is perfect, you have Munacy and Malbs next to you, you must be shit. So no, obviously there's some teams that in theory could be up there as well. But those two should run this league. You know, they should run this league. Vitality, Spirit, they have the superstars. Unless Simple makes a comeback or Falcons add something more to the mix, like, you know, G2 lose Munacy to Falcons, I don't see anyone else really coming close to these two for at least a good while. I had Spirit just running the year, like, outright, unless Vitality showed me that they could fight. But I don't want to get... at the same time, I say all this, I build all this up, I don't want to get overexcited. Remember, Vitality won Cologne last year. But for the rest of the year, they kind of finished, you know, they made playoffs, lost. What did we do wrong? We got outcooled by Chopper this time, or last time we lost to Shuhei in a one-off. Like, there's a lot of things that have gone wrong for them in the last 12 months that I don't want to get overly excited, but it should be those two running the year. Those two teams should be the teams to watch out for, and those are the teams we should be having like a stupid argument about at the end of the year, like who is the team of the year? Well, this one won one major and 3 other big events, whilst also this team actually won more prestige events, but you know, some bollocks like that, like we did last year, except hopefully more convincing.
Hopefully more convincing. But yeah, no, I think Vitality have absolutely solved parts of their difficulties against top opposition with adding Rops. Something I'm going to say is Rops and FlameZ, they're averaging 117 and 111 respectively so far, but against top 10 teams in 8 maps, they're both averaging over 120, which is crucial, I think. Zews as well as keeping his 140 level, which is insane, which is including Last Bounty and IEM Katowice, of course. So if they sustain that, Vitality have fixed all of their issues.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like Zews has always been shit on stage. He's been elite on stage many years. It's just in 2024, he took a significant hit in arena games that was noticeable and important. You know, it's not like we said he has never been good in arenas. It's that in 2024, he was poor. And that was a problem. A part of the problem. And I'm sure Spinks's evil machinations and douchebaggery was super important to that being the problem. You know, the vibes, man, the vibes were that much worse that he just couldn't do it on stage. But look, so far this year, I had questions early on about especially FlameZ coming into star roles and how he'd hold up to the new pressure. Because, you know, going from a guy who outperforms his roles to a guy who now has to do it, just has to. There's no other way around it. Like, you're given spots, you're given setup, you're given like, these privileges of being a star. You have to have returns. And early on, he seemed to be struggling. He was multi-killing his way to a ridiculous firepower rating, which was an amusing little tidbit. But overall, it wasn't a good showing. This event was. I think he was pretty good.
Yeah, he was big in closing that final as well. I feel like the final 2 rounds they win on Mirage, I'm pretty sure FlameZ had not just openings. I think he had opening multis in both of those rounds, if I remember correctly. At least one of them, he definitely had an opening double. So, you know, I'm big on FlameZ. for this year as well. I'm always going to be rooting for Flamesy, but especially
we're all fans of Flamesy, right? It's hard not to be.
Yeah.
A 1.21 rated Kato run, 1.42 impact. Like these are the kind of numbers you want to see. He's still entering a lot, as in traded deaths are quite high, but that's all good. I think Apex has found so far a decent balance in terms of being a floating kind of playmaker, whilst also trying to be more sportive to a new star rifler. One's new coming in, one's new just changing roles, but he's got a lot to balance, and so far I think he's done a decent job. He's been really impactful in his fragging. If you watched any of the highlights from the semis, I'm sure in the final there's a couple things that stood out to me as well. Apex finding key kills rather than a lot of kills has been quite important.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's talk about some of the other teams, because we talked about Vitality quite a bit. I'm sure Spirit there's a lot to talk about, but I want to get to Na'Vi quickly, because I watched their match against Spirit, the semi-final one, the one that really mattered. One was a seeding game. It's not the same. And then Mirage disappointed me. Now, they did what they're supposed to do. They're Na'Vi. They're going to play out of their mid control quite heavily. And the problem is, everyone knows they are. And Spirit, more than anyone, understand exactly how they're going to do it. So that's what led to a lot of rounds essentially looking like Na'Vi are getting baited into a stacked site or into a setup that's ready for them, even if it's not stacked, and where the defenders are going to get multiple kills. And it happened a lot early on. And I think the worst example of this, in terms of just Spirit understanding exactly what Na'Vi want to do, was Chopper just walking out into mid, just pre-aiming underpass and just clearing the Imma spots. Because Imma's going to do a certain set number of things, like a lot of underpass lurkers are going to do, because Mirage is getting, I'm going to be honest, it's getting a bit boring in that sense. It's very predictable, the paths people are going to take and when they're going to play their plays. He's just walking out, killing him, and no one's even looking for it. No one's checking for him, no one's watching Con. He just knows there's going to be a gap probably here where he can walk out and just kill Imma for free. And that was, to me, the point where things should really switch, is quite early on when you're getting baited into all these XX that are just getting crushed. You need to switch things up about there. But it took them another 4 rounds. Like, they ran one B rush that worked with half buy. That got through, that got them around. Then they went back to the mid control, back to the predictability. And I thought they needed to switch things up earlier than they did. Blade eventually did call a timeout, and they end up winning 4 rounds on the half, I think. They go from 8-1 to 8-4. Once they do a few more timing-based, contact-based, faster plays, rather than just their standard control procedures. But I thought, it took them a little too long to adjust, which I thought was a bit weird, considering who they are in terms of a coach, in terms of an IGL. I thought they'd have that backup plan ready to go a lot sooner, considering how familiar these two teams are with each other.
Yeah, it's basically the matchup of the past couple of months. It's been the matchup. Not if you ask HLTV, that would have been Na'Vi and G2, which would have been the matchup as for the time. I would be really curious to watch like the key rounds, like a compilation of the key rounds in the seeding game Mirage and the actual semifinal Mirage game, because as much as seeding games don't matter as much, were Spirit just saving their strats for the actual important game, or I don't know, but it would be interesting to see. It would be interesting to see what the key differences are, because looking at the stats sheet, what I'm seeing is that JL underperformed in the semifinal. Imma was big in the online, like in the group stage game. Like that's what it looks like on the stats sheet. Like contrasting the two games, because I could only watch one of them, would be really interesting. It might be something I do later today, because I have a lot of time today. I'm not sure about Na'Vi. I still think you were too cautious on your prediction to say they wouldn't win anything past April, because I just don't think they're winning anything.
Yeah.
Skipping Cluj, it would have been a perfect win for them. No, they skipped it.
Yeah, that's true. No, I didn't. To be fair, I didn't catch the Mirage from the group stage, so I can't tell you what was different there. But overall, I mean, that series, Dust 2 comes down to the final round, Nuke goes into OT. They were incredibly closely dueling out, essentially, that series. I can only speak to what I saw. And that was just a poor a poor response to their T side, initially just floundering. And then on T side for Spirit, my word, a lot of pace, a lot of timing based play, and Donk hitting some crazy shots. But I think it's who is it? Is it Rupa or Rupa? The Finnish guy who's a Navi stan on Twitter. Oh, he's an actual caster and everything, but a lot of his tweets are basically just Navi standing.
Yeah, I don't know this guy.
I always forget his name, and it's Rupa or Rupa or something to that extent. Anyway, more importantly, he said, Navi's the better team, but Spirit have Donk. I'm like, yeah, kinda. But also, the part where they're supposed to be better, they got wrong on their map pick. And that was important to me. Plus, wonderful threw around entirely by just whiffing an easy shot. Zontix kills 3. That was embarrassing. But number 11, remember? Number 11. Another team we need to talk about. Katowice playoffs. You've brought them up. Mongols have ended up number 2 in the world. Is this on the Valve ranking or something?
Not right now, but I think they were, after they took the win against Eternal Fire, I think they briefly hopped up to number 2 on the Valve world ranking, and in the live ranking. So not the actual ranking, which invites are based off. They're number 4 at the moment.
Oh, okay. On the 7th of February, they hit number 2.
From 6th to 7th, they went from number 5 to number 2, which was kind of insane after beating Eternal Fire. That caused a lot of debate about how shot the system is, and there's different opinions you can have about it. We're going to talk about it later. But I'm kind of struggling to see. They did still beat Eternal Fire, a team we have called a top 5 side so far in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And they beat them quite convincingly.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure where I would put them right now, because this is the first we've seen them. Katowice was the first we've seen of Mongols so far in this year. And look, they didn't play Navi or Spirit or Vitality, and they didn't beat them in the playoffs. So I would hesitate to call them that big of a team. They played Navi in the group stage in a seeding game, and they got screwed. So I'm not really sure where to put them. It's mostly just a debate I kind of want to bring up, because it's difficult to put Mongols in a legitimate top 5 debate. I'm not sure if you would agree with me there, but I can't really put them there. But undeniably, they're top 4 in Katowice.
Yeah, they are. Well, think of it like this. We know who essentially the top 3 teams are right now. It's Spirit, it's Vitality, and it's Navi. Top 2, whatever. I think you can put Vitality at 1 now. They won the actual first Prestige event. But essentially the debate is those 2, then Navi probably right now. That's the 3.
No man's land, yeah.
Like, that's the 3. And then after that, because we've kind of lost the teams who should be just behind them. At least briefly.
Yeah, it should be G2, FaZe, and Mouse, I think, closest behind. Exactly. Maybe Liquid in the discussion.
Based off last year, not Liquid, fuck off, but based off last year,
maybe
it's Mouse, it's G2, and it's FaZe. However, at the start of this year, they've, Eternal Fire essentially filled the gap that those teams were supposed to be in by being just better than even as far as Vitality, just being better than them, which is a bit of a shock. Beating G2, beating Vitality, constantly beating a lot of the teams who are lower ranked than them in order to make playoffs, in order to make top 6. I think it's undeniable that Eternal Fire were like the number 4. Mongols go beat them. Like, do you put Mongols at 5? It's one of those very unconvincing, still murky areas. I think that's
especially because they skipped Bounty. Because what Eternal Fire have going for them is they made a grand final, and they made a grand final in the first tier 1 event by beating the team we would probably now put as number 1, and they also made top 4 at Katowice. Top 6 at Katowice.
Yeah, so, and they have the convincing wins to go with it, because to make top 6 at Katowice, they still have to beat they still have to beat FaZe. To make the deep runs elsewhere, they have to beat G2, Vitality. It's the teams they've beat to make the runs that also contribute to their story. It's more than anything, more than just being statistically there, just ticking the box of being in a grand final. They also beat actually solid teams with big names. So I do. They
beat all of them. They beat G2, Vitality, and Navi at some point in the event. Maybe not Navi, but they definitely beat both G2 and Vitality to make it there. And I think they beat whatever.
No, they've beaten enough people to legitimately have that placing of number 4. It's just, do we give Mongols credit just for just beating Eternal Fire, essentially, on their comeback into this year? How much do we carry over from last year as credit for them as well? After making a top 8 of the major, then they come into this year, they beat Liquid, Gamer Legion, and Eternal Fire. I think we can put Mongols comfortably in the top 8. Pending, like we're going to have a couple teams I think are going to be like 5th to 8th right now. And which goes out pending further clarification. You know, currently under review, I think is the best way to put it. Because they're obviously not number 2. They're clearly, like the way they lost to Na'Vi, the way they lost to Vitality, they're not of that ilk.
No.
And Eternal Fire are famously, you know, highs and lows. And we give them that 4th place credit because of the highs being so potent. Mongols.
Then they lose to Mongols in a quarterfinal, and they lose to VP in a group stage game in the first Prestige event of the year. So,
and that's shocking, but they still made playoffs at the Prestige event. So we have to kind of give Mongols let's give Mongols kind of the pending, I think, because we haven't seen enough of them. We haven't seen them play a lot this year. We'll wait and see. It's still too soon to put them above G2. Let's put it like that.
Maybe. I'm putting them very close to G2. I definitely put them above FaZe at the moment. FaZe have done nothing. And as much as Mouse with Spinks could go any number of ways, I would...
I mean, FaZe have eliminated G2. That's what they've done. But,
yeah. Still didn't make playoffs.
Yeah.
And they also lost. They didn't do shit at Bounty either. I mean, it's obviously early days. These rankings are always going to be volatile as hell if we're talking about who's best.
That's what I'm saying. We just give them 5th to 8th. We just say 5th to 8th. There's like 4 teams here, 5th to 8th. Mongols still deserve to be in that pack, that conversation.
Yeah, they have. Yeah.
But no, I don't want to go any further than that. I just don't want to go any further.
Cool.
Yeah. That's essentially where I'm feeling just about Mongols for now. I'm sure everything will get cleared up.
I've seen a lot of numbers and a bunch of games as well for so far around Katowice, and they've had big players obviously, and all of their players are very skilled. All their players are very talented, and they've done really well so far. There's one player in particular who I think is standing out a little bit extra at the moment, unexpected for me for Mongols, and that's 910, because he's starting to look like one of the best oppers of the year so far. And again, it's opposition, but a lot of the raw metrics, like you look at, B-Trams, he's been making a lot of these, like op accuracy. 910 is definitely top of all of those. Close to the top anyway, and he's doing it quite consistently. He's making smart decisions. Like, I'm not really, like, 910 is looking really solid right now compared to some of his peers who are going to be like Wonderful and Brokey and like players in that sort of layer of competition. If we're talking 5 to 8, then he's being directly compared to what Torji, Ultimate, Brokey, Woxic, and I'd probably put 910. I'd put him even with Woxic so far in 2025. And that's kind of crazy, I think, because 910 historically, we know he was super weak at the start of 2024. Then he had that one MVP performance, and then I think he was kind of middling. It was more Mizzinu and Senzu who was doing the bulk of the statistical work for the remainder of the year.
So far, 910 has yet to change my view of him. And whilst I do think it is absolutely a conversation to have him amongst the Torji, Wonderful, Brokey weeds, I think slightly above Ultimate for now. I do still see the same sort of problem where it's like his floor is low, his ceiling is high. He hasn't found a middle ground to actually sit on. His stats obviously average out, but I just opened up right now his map history at Kato. Buddy's just yo-yoing from extreme good to extreme shit. It's alarming. And so whilst I do think he is a very talented player and he belongs in that conversation, he needs to find a little bit more consistency. Just, I think, to take that next step. And for Mongols, I think, to be able to rely on him a little more. Yeah, I like him. I like 910, but not enough to start getting overly excited. And I don't know, what's sniper accuracy stats? What are we talking about?
So this is basically B-Trams on Twitter. He's been putting out some of this stuff after all of the events. basically running through all the shots, all of the op shots taken by various players, and graphing it relative to how many shots they take per map, or per 12 rounds rather, per half, versus how many of those hit, based on also adjusted for how many of those opponents actually would have been visible. So I mean, look, that's just something I feel like there's underperforming operators who are definitely very low on this. Fallen is one of them. There's some, you have the usual suspects here. Wonderful, yeah, he misses a lot of sitters. We know this. It's one of the criticisms about him. He's also low on this. Then you have some other, like, on the kind of, I don't know. There's a bunch of other numbers I've seen as well, but that's just the one which stuck in my head because I saw it the most recently. And I was kind of surprised about 910 being like, wow, he's actually like top 2, top 3 out of everybody for this. So, yeah, I don't know. His name is Smart Backwards, I think. Smart Backwards on Twitter, yeah. He does a lot of this. I think he's a stats. He's got a statistics degree. He's maybe Baby Nero.
Baby Nero.
Yeah.
Is that what we're going to dub him now? Baby Nero.
Baby Nero, yeah, I guess. I've been reading through his tweets a lot. I've been enjoying them. And it's brought out a lot of perspectives that I wasn't really thinking about without having seen the stats.
Okay, well.
Just a small side point, yeah.
Right, you have a final point here for the entire event that I kind of sniffed at, obviously, and have moved it to the end of the list because it's the least important by a long shot, considering this is a sample. What is this? Mir? We're talking about Mir in 2025.
Yeah, because he was in an IEM Katowice quarterfinal. Yes. After not competing for 10 months. And I'm just sort of wondering, like, where the hell is he at? Because could we put him into one of these Russian teams? Could we, like, put him in a conversation somewhere here? I'm just saying, there's a team called 9 Pandas who have a ban from ESL Challenger League on one of their players. I'm just saying, there's teams who I think could use a player like Mir, and historically would have said, no, please put him out of here because he's not. We've heard stuff about him, and we've heard that maybe he's not a particularly good player in a lot of ways. I still think he's shown that he's quite talented, especially on that ancient map where he was basically putting VP alone against what at that point we would have called the best team in the world. So,
right,
where's he at? Why did nobody interview this guy? Why did nobody try to catch him? Did he post nothing on Telegram? Like, does this guy still have a career? I'd like to see him have a career. I'd like to see Mir somewhere as a redemption arc.
Mir,
can we put him somewhere?
I'm putting him in the retirement home because he's 29.
Okay,
and it's over. It's just over.
All right.
He kind of had his run, and he had every opportunity. And whilst I do like players getting second chances and being able to redeem themselves, he's had too much time and too many attempts, too many teams. At some point, I just stopped caring. So I'm not moved by his 16 and 19 ancient performance against Spirit in the quarterfinal of IEM Katowice. I do not think that is enough to magically give him credit to just go and play for someone, especially as he has personality issues that have historically plagued him and his teams. Do you know what we should do as a team who now has to go through hundreds of games of grinding online with a guy who probably doesn't want to be there? You know, do we want to go through that experience, that train ride,
this is a fair point?
Ride?
Yeah,
like come on.
This is a fair point.
There's a time and a place for that kind of player to make a comeback, and it's called grinding it out from the very bottom of the scene.
Yeah,
and
put him with
if he's not willing to do that, then I don't care.
Yeah. That's what it's a very fair point. It's a very fair point. And also that time and a place for a comeback, I suppose it's called Entropic.
And it went terribly. So
yeah,
let sleeping.
Yeah, it's a fair point. Fair point. I thought it was interesting seeing him. There, and probably doesn't click very well with electronic, I suppose. Seemingly quite abrasive personalities, both of them.
Yeah. I don't think you want to invite more of that kind of
No, that's a fair point.
Shatter.
I think a lot of people just didn't really think about him being here, but like during that game, I had my eyes on him constantly because I was like, it's kind of crazy. Mir is here, like.
Sure, it's weird.
Yeah, it's super weird. Also,
no denying it's weird.
Could have had Norbert. Could have put Norbert back in. Anyway,
let's not get into Norbert. All right.
No.
Let's get into the small site retake. Let's let you talk about something that isn't which players are good, because you're better at that. Let's put it that way. Because Mir is not
going to be.
Stop trying to make him happen. Stop trying to make Mir happen. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Let's get into it. VRS, what's wrong?
It's broken. A lot of people think it's broken. It's broken for a number of reasons. People are saying it's very stagnant. People are saying it's very difficult to break into there if you are a team like Paravision or NIP, which is honestly fair. Paravision have been really talked about as sort of trailblazers in terms of making their way back into a top level of competition with a run. Even with this run they have, which I think was Astralis, heading into the Astralis game, I think they had 9 out of 10 games won, and several of them would have been ranked. They still only have 8 out of 10 needed. They're not going to be ranked until another 2 games are played, which I have no fucking idea what that's going to be. A Challenger League, I suppose. I don't know. People are saying it's really broken, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. One of the reasons is that we have a lack of open qualifiers, and there's been some interesting opinions here. So the original opinion that people had was that there's way too few open qualifiers. Like you look at the tier 1 calendar, there's no open qualifiers anywhere. Like very few teams. PGL have like a couple, and Blast Open has been going on right now. IEM Dallas as well. So there's a couple, but there's not enough. And a lot of people are saying, why don't we have open qualifiers for Katowice or for Blast Bounty? And my first reaction was, well, you're right. There should be open qualifiers, but also like, should any team be able to fluke their way into Katowice? No. Here's the actual solution. Make CCT mandated and other tier 2 licensed events mandated to have at least 1 or 2 open qualifier spots. But then came a rebuttal. Today there was an open letter from 22 teams signed about the difficulties of and the flaws of the Valve ranking, the Valve regional standings. And one of the issues mentioned was that, well, yeah, but the reason that tier 2 organizers don't run or open qualifiers is because that's quite a significant amount of work. Because you're going to have 500 teams competing in a single elimination bracket. And you're going to need to admin that. You're going to need, like, that's a lot of labor. And it's just cheaper to just run invite-only events. So that's honestly what creates the issue. It's that you have the tier 1 layer, which is it's not stagnant. Like, I'm going to highlight this. I think it's slightly overblown that we haven't seen a change in a month. Well, yeah, we've had one ranking update and a bunch of teams a bunch of events in January were unranked. Obviously, this is going to be a difficulty. This is not an issue with the system. This is just the way it works. We have infrequent ranking updates, but they might have more sweeping changes. Some of those changes have happened. VP and Eternal Fire have moved into the top 12 instead of Pain and MIBR. So we're going to see, for a lot of the tier 1 events to come, VP and Eternal Fire are going to be the first choice invites, and Pain and MIBR are going to have to try to qualify. So there are big changes. Imperial FE have dropped out of the top 24. So unless something changes with Cluj-Napoca, they're going to have a rough time. Weirdly enough, Nexus are one of the 2 teams who have replaced them in the top 24. So we're gonna,
it got worse.
It's Heroic and Nexus between the January and February invitation ranks. VP and Eternal Fire moved into top 12. Pain and MIBR dropped out. Astralis moved into top 16. MIBR dropped out, and Heroic and Nexus moved into the top 24. Saw and Imperial Valkyries dropped out of the top 24.
Wait, seriously, did the IESF World Championship influence the rankings that much? I hate life. What do you mean Nexus are top 24?
Thing is, they weren't that high in the January ranking, so the ISF thing wouldn't have done anything. They
haven't won a damn game, I swear. Like, how have they ended up here?
The January 6th ranking put Nexus at 28th, and they've since moved up for the February 3rd ranking, which is the next invitation ranking. And they've since moved up into 23rd. And I don't know why.
How? Literally, they haven't lost. They haven't won since like December. They lost to Into the Breach. M80, Sashi, 9, and Eklot. That's all the games they've played in 2025 on HLTV. How have they gone upwards?
The games that made them move up, the ranked games. Oh, it's actually that. They played 0 ranked games. They moved up by just standing still. Because they played Yalla Compass, that was revoked. They don't have ranked status anymore. They lost to Into the Breach anyway, but that loss doesn't count. They played the ICE Invitational LAN and lost both games there. That also wasn't ranked, so that doesn't matter. There's losses to M80 and Sashi. And then they didn't play anything before the February 3rd update.
This is cancer. This is actual cancer.
Anyway, it's not stagnant. No, yeah, all right. So the problem here is tier 2 events can't run open qualifiers. They just don't have the resource for it. Like Vlog can't afford it. So tier 1 event. So people are saying tier 1 events need open qualifiers. I think there's still a way for this not to not necessarily require open qualifiers. And what I'm saying is, you have a lot of unranked events still. I was expecting like event organizers like United 21 and European Pro League to just bite the bullet and change their event formats to become ranked. This has not happened. They are seemingly perfectly happy running unranked events. The ongoing United 21 League season, the final is going on right now. It's Viperio and Favbet. Favbet are decently high ranked, but Viperio, if this was a ranked event, this would have been huge for them. So what I'm sort of suggesting here, and there's another example I'm going to bring up for this. Here's a suggestion I have. There needs to be a second tier of wildcard invites for tier 2 events, where you can add maybe 2 teams, depending on the size of the event. CCT can add 2 wildcard invites. These are not wildcard in the sense of the tier 1 wildcards, which require teams to have been top 8 or have won a tier 1 event. These are instead tier 2 wildcards, which are a lot more liberal. It could be something like this. Like, say, instead of having the top 8 thing, you could have a top 40 thing, and you could basically slam together a bunch of decently highly regarded, pretty good tier 2 players, slam them together into a team, and you don't have to like grab players like Jax. If this was the case, NIP would have wildcard invites with their full roster because they had 5 players who were definitely top 40. If this was the case, Perivision wouldn't need to do anything because I'm pretty sure both Travis and Nota would have, James definitely would have been top 40. And Travis and Nota definitely were at some point as well. So, this is a non-issue. I think maybe even Sangal would have been fine because Krias and Blitz would have been top 40 after the RMR. So even Sangal would have been fine. And I don't think that goes against the spirit of the rules. Second thing, instead of having them win a ranked event, I understand that like unranked events can't give points, but winning an unranked event could still qualify you for a wildcard invite. So, for example, we had an Asian team which absolutely swept an Asian LAN earlier this year. It was the Extremes LAN Asia Open in 2024, an unranked event held in China, in Shanghai. A lot of the top Asian opposition was here because we had Rar Adam, we had Tyloo, we had Atox, Gigi Hao, IHC, God's Range, Incus Warriors, and then a bunch of qualified teams from various different regional qualifiers. Like there was a Thailand qualifier, South Korea qualifier, Vietnam qualifier. These teams didn't really make a dent. One team which did make a dent came from the Saudi Arabia qualifier, and it was EXO, because they lost a single map all events on LAN, and that was against Chinggis Warriors. They completely swept Rare Atom, and then they won the final 2-0 against Atox. So the players who showed up here, it was particularly Osamas and Paul Bandana, where Osamas especially was one of the big standouts. This team is unranked, and it's still going to be unranked. None of these games matter in terms of getting invites to anything, and especially in the Asian region where you have very few teams ranked in the first place. That actually becomes a significant issue. This is like, in terms of the Asian scene, this is like if let me just drag a European example. This is a little bit like if Gamer Legion made top 8 at Katowice, but they still couldn't get into Challenger League. Like they still couldn't get those invites. They still couldn't get CCT invites. It's as if, in terms of a local scene, that's sort of the equivalent. So this actually creates significant issues. I don't see a reason why winning an event like this, winning a LAN event in China, couldn't qualify you for an invite to, say, Challenger League or say whatever else might be going. I don't think there's an Asian CCT region, but let's say Challenger League, because they really struggle getting invites. Like the teams who are here, a lot of them are completely goddamn unknown. And they're just here because, you had, like, one of the teams you had to pull up from Open. So like, this is difficult. This is really difficult. So EXO definitely should be in the Asian Challenge League if they want to play there. Maybe even in the European. Maybe that's easier for them playing from the Middle East. But this is the difficult thing. So I don't really see why a United 21 champion couldn't get invited to a CCT season. I don't think that goes against the spirit of the Valve rules. It's just that the United 21 winner doesn't get any points for their prize money or the wins they took in United 21. But there needs to be an easier way to get in. And I think in allowing teams to make wildcard invites based on unranked events, winners of unranked events, that I think is fine. And I don't think that goes against the spirit of the rule. Tier 2 basically needs to be a bit less regulated in this regard in terms of invitations. Okay. In other ways, I absolutely don't think they should be less regulated. Like CCT should absolutely still have to invite based on VRS range. They shouldn't be able to have weird shadow bans. Yala Compass, you shouldn't be able to arbitrarily decide who goes there. Wildcard invites should be given the lowest seed, as they are according to the rules. So yeah, there's still a lot of regulation things that I think are really positive about the Valve system. It is just the fact that I think there needs to be an easier way to make it happen. And considering these unranked events are often also tracked by HLTV, which run the database. Like HLTV's match database is the basis for the Valve ranking. They cooperate on that. I don't really see a reason why unranked events couldn't basically work as open qualifiers, not sanctioned by the organizer. Like, this is sort of what I mean. So yeah, I think this could be a good system. And I think that's what should happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I think this season is going to be a little bit of a write-off, which is a shame because we're seeing teams fucking dying over this. Like Endpoint disbanded because they can't get into a reasonable range of competition. And like some people would say, well, just build a better team. Well, yeah, they tried. But they're also kind of like their hands are kind of tied because they can only make 2 changes. If they want to make more changes, that's going to be difficult. They might need to pick up a core. There's a lot of different things here which could be really complicated for them. And that goes for a lot of teams. Endpoints are not going to be the first team to drop their roster because they can't get into a decent level of competition. And that's a shame. So yeah, that's basically where I'm at. I think those are like 2 of the key changes that need to happen to make it easier to basically compromise about the lack of open qualifiers. Because I fully understand the thing that Grid, the organizers of the CCT, sorry, not Relog, Grid, it would be a significant undertaking, and I'm sure they could find the money for it, but they'd probably have to scale down their operation in general. Like we might have fewer CCT events, we might have smaller CCT events if they also had to run open qualifiers. So yeah, I understand this. I think there's a compromise to be found, and I think Tier 2 is it's too heavily regulated at the moment.
That's essentially what it comes down to. Because we had almost prophetically, but it didn't take a genius to figure it out. Said the second we saw the Valve rankings just announced and the idea behind it, we knew it'd fuck the Tier 2 scene. Yeah,
it's very Tier 1 brained. It's very Tier 1 brained.
It's so short-sighted in that sense. And wow, surprise, surprise, it screwed everything up. Now, the real problem is not, I don't think Endpoint are a good example, just because they are just shit. And they chose not to rebuild. The problem is, it's not that Endpoint currently as a team have a problem. It's that if they ever tried to actually come from zero, they have a problem. And that's the problem everyone has. It's so hard to be an unranked team and actually get any credit for anything. Like, play any real events. Even when, like you pointed out, with that EXO roster, winning an actual LAN. Sure, it's not a hugely impressive tier of competition. It's still a lot of decent Asian teams. They go out there, they beat them. And their reward for that is a shrug, a handshake. They get 40 grand, but it means nothing because it doesn't actually allow them to go play bigger events.
Yeah.
Because we've been locked into this system, this structure. And I think that's something we need to address. And I think your solution, it kind of works. I do think slightly deregulating Tier 2 has to be the solution. Now, of course, I could honestly stand behind a near complete deregulation of Tier 2, as long as we, get someone with some real authority to, paddle Grid like on the arse when it comes to their silly banning system, arbitrarily deciding the algorithm has chosen this team to be banned. Like, obviously, we have to do away with that kind of nonsense. That's the one good thing about Valve trying to step in, but it's overall created more harm than good by essentially removing the the clear paths of progression for tier 2 sides up through the scene. Like the
Yeah,
sustainability for them is gone.
I think the having to invite off a VRS order is still a positive. Having to disclose whenever you make bans based on some sort of evidence, which basically means the absence of bullshit bans entirely. I think those are good changes, and we should keep them. And Valve should keep putting their foot down when they're not held up. But I don't know what Valve were really thinking with like having to force everything to be VRS. I think they just as me, like me, they were expecting that teams would just deny invitations to United 21 or European Pro League if they didn't make the change to be ranked. This hasn't happened because they have to play something. You can't just sit around and wait for a tier 1 out, unless you're Nexus. Apparently, you can't just sit around and wait for the ranking to do the work for you.
No, you need to, just before everything becomes properly done, win IESF and then sit around and do nothing.
Then just sit around and do nothing. Important change which came through today. Strikers just tweeted about this. Forfeits are now going to count as losses on the VRS. Before they weren't counted at all. So, you can abuse it less at this point in terms of sitting around. If you accept an invite and you want to play a game, you can't just forfeit it and just lose nothing. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it is. I think it would make sense if unranked events, in particular LANs, like in LANs in particular, because we have other unranked LANs. Like we had we talked about the ICE invitations before. There's obviously caveats to this, because then you could just have like, oh, these guys, this random team of seeming like of suspicious match fixers won a LAN in Uzbekistan, and therefore we can invite them to CCT, or like CCT host an unranked LAN event, inviting 6 teams, and then one of them wins, and they just invite them. You could still do shit like that in that case, but for tier 2, that's probably not going to happen to a big extent. And there's other regulation you could have if you absolutely wanted to avoid it. But let's say 500 have a half decent Valve ranking at this point. It would have been even better, but they would have been even better if their ICE Invitational win would have counted. So I think there's changes to be had. I don't think we're going to get it before Austin, and if we do, it's not going to make a dent because the invites are coming out in less than 2 months. But hopefully for the fall season we can see some stuff happen, and I hope Valve are planning for that, because it's a bit odd seeing very few changes and seeing a lot of radio silence from them, while a lot of this has been screaming for it for a while. So I hope what they're doing is we don't want to disturb in the middle of the season, and we're going to wait for the summer break to make some changes.
Yeah, they shouldn't though. They shouldn't wait that long, because most of these problems are tier 2 problems, and we're talking about wait to the tier 1 like kind of calendar break essentially. Why? I mean, we're not asking you to change how the big events work. It's mostly the build up to them that needs adjusting. Like it's the lower parts of the scene that need not just they can already do whatever the fuck they want, but they need to be able to do a certain amount of what they want and have it still be official and legitimate.
Yeah. There is one more thing, which is the prize money component. Like, as you said, Nexus, they won ISF. That's a big land with big prize money. And that's basically why they're here at this point.
Yeah, it's dumb, but yeah.
It is dumb. Imperial FE are the same thing. They get a big prize money payout for winning what's going to be a tier 2 ranked LAN. That is what the Impact League is officially licensed as.
Tier 2?
There's 2 tiers, tier 1 and tier 2. Otherwise, you're not ranked.
Yeah.
And a qualifier, but yeah, wildcard events also exist, but they're tier 1. Basically, the prize money component of it, what I think they should do is at this point you have a solid enough ground for the majority of teams where you can order them based on VRS ranking, and it's gonna roughly work. You can base invites and you can base seeding off of this, and it's gonna work. So what I think you should do now is you shouldn't just outright remove the prize money component, because if you do that, you're going to have, from month to month, you're going to have extreme changes, because it counts backwards. Like past results impact every ranking update. So if you just rug pull prize money entirely, you're going to have teams completely dropping out and some teams completely going up. I don't think it's a good idea. What I think they should do is they should just say, after some date, maybe tomorrow, maybe the summer break, whatever, after that, prize money earned after that is not going to count. So people who have been afforded opportunities based on the way the current ranking works, they get to keep them. But for the future, you don't need it, because at this point you have a solid enough ranking where you can go off of past. You could go off the ranking itself and make it sort of recursive in that sense. prize money was a decent starting point. It was, because big events have bigger prize money. It was a decent starting point for categorizing who's best in the best events.
Well, we pointed out I don't know, pointed out instantly, this is a silly idea that's going to get abused and have problems, because we already have had in the past big events that aren't really big events. You know, the ISFs of the world, the ESWCs or EWCs or whatever, they throw out massive prize pools to try and get better teams to show up. And now Valve was like, oh, you know what? We're going to make that exponentially more potent by also giving that ranking points.
Yeah, but as a starting point, in terms of the cost of having to categorize all of those events manually relative to just saying putting the number on it based on the prize money, I think that's fair. If Valve don't want to hire a bunch of extra employees to do that full time as a governing body, then I think it's fine as a starting point. It's just that you have to realize that at some point you have to move away from it, because it's not sustainable in the long run. And at this point, we're approaching the VRS ranking being some sort of authority come the summer break, because that's when they introduced the change for ahead of the Shanghai Major, where the VRS ranking was going to be the removal of open qualifiers, basically, for the RMR. So at that point, I think I was expecting the prize money component to be gone. Coming up on 2 years since it was introduced in the first place. So yeah, fucking get rid of it. Like, just get rid of it, because at this point you can say that, like, you have a solid enough ranking where, like, if the 20th team beats the 40th team, that's a small gain, but if the 40th team beats the 20th team, that's a pretty big gain. You still have this ordering, and you could work off of the ranking as it is. So yeah, if you don't want to have a bunch of admins like HLTV do and categorize every team, every event, and weight them based on how heavy they are based on a bunch of different criteria, that's a significant workload. At this point, just remove that component and just go off of the bounty system, go off the network system, go off of, like, whatever. So yeah, this is strange, and I don't think I'm actually kind of worried. Because this feels wrong. But we'll see.
We will see, indeed. But I struggle. I struggle to see Valve actually doing anything properly when it comes to this kind of thing, because it takes a lot of effort and probably some resource dedication. Which, you know, if they had that in their mind as something they wanted to do, you know, run the scene properly, have people dedicated to it, you know, the Valve Esports Commission would have existed for years.
Yeah.
And it just simply hasn't. And no matter how much it's desperately needed, no matter how much we see different organizing bodies fail and their own systems just let a lot of people down, they haven't really indicated they're willing to do that. Which I think is going to be the issue. They're just not that bothered.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I guess it's their game, whatever, but I wish they did care. Right. Onto my small site, which is, I'm bringing it up now, I'm introducing it. I do potentially to run down to get the door during this segment. So hopefully you can just recite the entire article that HLTV put out, if needs be.
Yeah.
But essentially, on Snake and Banter, Zews decided to kind of get real. Reveal some stuff that I don't think everyone wanted him to. Not everyone needed him to bring up. Essentially, saying Twistzz is a bad IGL. Which is quite the statement to make. That's something all of us kind of have been thinking, like he's a rifler who's taken to the star, like he's taken away from star positions essentially here just to become an IGL. We're dubious about how it's going to work. And here he comes out to basically rip into him and say he should be taken off the calling responsibility. They should be going in for Shuhei, which is something we've also suggested, to be honest. And that, I mean, the idea to replace Ultimate with Shuhei is a bit weird, but whatever. He's got his views on how the team should be built. He doesn't agree with the way Twistzz has behaved in the past. I just think this is a really strange way for this to come out, although I kind of love it. I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm super here for it, despite it being incredibly unprofessional and probably very dumb. For his long-term career hopes, I do think it was fun.
It was fun. A lot of it is to be taken with a big grain of salt. A lot of it, parts of it could be corroborated, and parts of it could be more or less corroborated. It's just a lot of it also came out, and it was like, I mean, Liquid basically came out and said like about some of the personal issue stuff and personal drama stuff. Liquid were just like, I think Liquid CEO was like, I mean, yeah, this happened. Twistzz had a problem with Cadian. This is what happens in teams, and it was solved. Like this always happens in teams, and Zews is kind of putting it out of context by saying different things. Some of the things is just straight up untrue stuff about like him saying he was gonna go to Vitality, but then basically strong arming the org into that. That was never a thing apparently. Apparently, he had some interest, but he never used it as leverage to do anything. He doesn't have control of the roster. I'm assuming what he could have done is say, I don't want Elite to come here. That was one of the things which came out. Zews was like, Twistzz vetoed Elite coming into the team. And he was like, yeah, I mean, he could have said he doesn't want to, but it's not like he has the power to block a move entirely on his own. Also, he said that he used the team's money to treat Kerrigan and Rops and I think Rain or Brokey to an NBA game, which is kind of, I mean, Liquid just straight up said, no, Twistzz paid for those. Like, yeah, I mean, they're friends, so like, yeah, whatever. There's a lot of things here which should be taken with a big grain of salt. Zews is obviously salty. I think he has personal issues with Twistzz as well because, yeah, that roster kind of broke down. It was quite public. So yeah, big grain of salt on a lot of these things. But it's really funny. Like it was really funny about reading all this stuff. I did enjoy it. I think there is a grain of truth to this. There's obviously two sides to every story, and then there's the third side, which is the truth, which we don't know.
No, especially seeing as the org has come out and stood up for Twistzz. It's like, what? No shit.
Well,
like,
yeah,
their IGL, they're going to side with over their former coach. I am truly shocked and horrified that they disagreed with Zeus's perspective on everything. Wow.
Yeah. No, of course, that's entirely expected.
What a shock. Like, yeah, so no one here comes out with anything I consider to be the truth. But the fact that he comes out and says any of this means that clearly a lot more has gone on behind the scenes than Liquid would like to have publicly revealed.
I saw some people say, like, when the headline was the quote. The headline was the quote, which is Twistzz is a bad IGL and should get Sui instead of Ultimate. Liquid should get Sui instead of Ultimate.
I mean, that was a headline. Ridiculous idea.
Yeah. That was a headline on the article, and I saw some people go like, "Oh, this is such obvious clickbait from Major TV," without even reading the article. And then I was like, "No, if you've listened to the segment, that's obvious clickbait from Zeus because he is the one who opens the segment with that. It's a direct quote, but like it's." It's obvious for him. He just wants eyes on this because the hating on Ultimate was also kind of in the zeitgeist because I think this was like the day after Ultimate had that trigger discipline moment in Katowice. So and just had a real stinker versus Mongols. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny. I sort of wish we got more of this stuff where people would air their dirty laundry. But Liquid also. The Zeus, Cadian, Twistzz, and Yakindar of that Liquid roster in the spring season is kind of crazy. There was one thing. I mean, look, Zeus levied a lot of stuff against Twistz's wife, saying that Twistz's wife is basically running the team, like implying that. He didn't say it outright, but he implied that, like, oh, Twistzz is making all those moves, or his wife more likely, like, yeah. And then, she actually responded to a lot of stuff because she has a lot of knowledge about the inside of the team. I don't know if she is working with them in some capacity or if she just knows because she's married to Twistzz. But one of the funny things is that he said, Zeus said Liquid wanted Donk. They wanted to sign Donk in the off season. But Twistzz was the one who blocked it because he didn't want to play with Donk. And then, she kind of came out and said this like, oh yeah, it is true. Liquid inquired about wanting Donk, but he didn't speak English. Like he didn't. He at that point he wasn't ready for being in an English-speaking team, which I think is fair because you hear him in all those post-Katowice invites from last year or interviews from last year. He's barely understanding what they're saying.
He doesn't really speak English at all. Like
it wasn't a Donk Njarf. Yeah, fucking yeah. So yeah, that's like. Yeah, they inquired about him. Vitality also, like, there was that thing Vitality said about, like, we thought about getting Donk, but then we thought better of it because everybody did. Everybody thought about getting Donk. Everybody thought better of it. Just the same. Everybody probably thought about inquiring about Kyosuke in this offseason, but thought better of it. Like, it's the same reason. Anyway, I thought some of the stuff was stupid. Some of the stuff was corroborated. I think Liquid said as well about the Breezy thing. Cirque, I don't think was ever on the table, but Breezy was on the table. The idea before they built the Cadian roster was to get Breezy. I can see that you're maybe about to go. So the idea with the Breezy thing was before the Cadian roster, they wanted to build around Breezy and OZ. And Liquid said that, like, yeah, we wanted to do this, and we talked to Zews about joining the team and trying to build this project.
Briefly describe that in incredibly descriptive detail while I run downstairs and run back.
Yeah, okay.
Really get into all the nitty-gritty, every NA option.
Berlin Major 2019. Breezy and Cirque are in the semifinal. No, the Liquid CEO basically said they wanted to get Breezy and they wanted to build around him and OC for the 2024 roster. And they wanted to build a strong North American lineup. And they wanted Zeus to build that project. Zeus was like, maybe. And then he said, we actually have a second option. We could spend $1 million and we could get you Cadian and like Twistzz was already going, I think. We could get you Cadian and we could get you whoever the fuck else was there. Skulls. Zeus was Skulls' hire. Anyway, Skulls was Zeus' hire. Sorry. Yeah, so they basically went for that. That was on the table. And I think Zeus was trying to say stuff like, this is what Twistzz wanted to do. And it's like, no, that's not. Yeah. Anyway, I think it's funny. I think I would have liked to see more of this stuff. But yeah, Twistzz hasn't really said a lot about it, which I think is good. I think if he was just going to throw shit at each other, I think, yeah. Let's see, what else is going on? Should we talk about maybe there's some other Liquid stuff here, which is fun to talk about. Yeah. Oh yeah, they had a big fight with Cadian, a big falling out with Cadian, where like Zeus was implying that Twistzz was like, thought Cadian was a horrible human being. Not sure that's true. I think it is just that he thought calling wasn't working. I think that's why he would step up and try to be the leader for 2025. Yeah, there's just a lot of shit going on. So yeah. It's regular roster shit. I think every single team in existence has these kind of similar kind of issues at some point, or a lot of them do, except for the extremely high performing teams. And even they have it occasional. Like we know there have been, there's been stuff like this inside some of the best teams in history as well. So this is what happens. Chemistry is extremely important in Counter-Strike teams, and because we have very small teams. This is something I didn't think about. I'm going to quote Eric Vendel here of NIP. Compared to a football team, like if you think about a football team, you have maybe 22, 23, 24 players in a squad. You don't need all of them to be best friends to make this work, because you can play like maybe like there's times when you have two starting players who don't really interact on the field as much. Like fullback might not interact too much with a center back might not interact too much with a striker. So you can work with that. But then in CS, you have 5 players. They're all constantly working together. You can have 2 players who don't interact with one another. So interpersonal chemistry is extremely important. And a lot of teams have some small issues with this. Some of them have big issues with this. And that's always going to be the case. So you always have, you're always working through this stuff, even on Liquid. I got very, very weird there. But yeah, I've talked about the Liquid roster history.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Cool.
Yeah. Right. Awkward timing. But yeah, it's mostly because we got started late. We would have been done by now had we started on time. But that was on me. I was busy.
No worries.
But right, yeah. Amusing to hear these insights, and I'm sure what Quack said was very interesting.
Maybe it's someone. But
all right, yeah. Where are we? Yeah.
About to move into the shuffle, I think.
Internal shuffle, I think,
yeah.
No, I mean, I don't really. I just thought it was funny.
It is funny.
It's hard to retake the week without mentioning that. At least offhanded.
Yeah. Happened in the week.
Did indeed. All right. Take us through the Eternal Shuffle. I'll add some grades on this.
Oh, you want to grade this? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Sweet. First off, 3D Max have cut Joko and Body, and I think this is the highest profile move we've had.
Cut Joko and added Body. Yeah.
Added Body, yeah.
Right.
They have added Body. This is actually pretty high profile because 3D Max have attended both of the Tier 1 events we've had so far, and I think they're set to attend even more, and they've played a pretty decent game at the ones they've been in. So this is a pretty high profile move. So yeah, give it a grade, Mr. French man.
Let's see. Yeah, I kind of like this. I think Body, whilst he has his problems as an IGL, can frag, can rifle pretty well.
He's not going to call on this roster, I should point out. Maka is still calling.
Exactly. Yeah, Maka's still, it's Maka's roster. Jocko is all over the shop. I should give that a strong B+. Like, it's not insane. It's not like they've magically transcended tier 2, but they have got at least, I think, a little more consistent and a little stronger here.
Yep. I think it's a solid move. I've never been a huge Joko guy because I've just never seen him be that good. Body at least brings a bit more of the top level experience. He's just coming in from Alec, you know. It could be very valuable. And these players have played together before. So it's probably a comfortable move. BC Game have cut Lekro and Satsanito, and they have added Nexa and Cypher to recreate the unpaid core, which, again, Valve ranking was somehow higher ranked than the BC Game roster still, despite not having played since October. So yeah, they got a fucking Dallas close qualifier invite from that, I think. But yeah, that's the move. How do you rate it?
Cynically, it works. That's the problem. Overall, how much do I want it to be good? Not very. But it is a good move. I think, considering what the roster was looking like, and considering the mess they were stuck in, I'd give it... Honestly, I kind of have to give it an A, because sure, we joked a lot about how Bleed, are basically reforming here. Like, it's the Bleed roster almost. And they had their problems. And I think I said they just didn't like Kassad. Like, that's the joke I made. I was like, this is just fuck Kassad. But it's, I don't know, that was a better team. This has gotten them at least a decent level. Like, they've already played 11 maps together. Yeah. Because this is not just two-man change, is it? Like, Nexa and Cypher have been added, but so's Nork not too long ago. So realistically, yeah, this is a new, better version. Not necessarily better version of Bleed, but this is a better version of the BC Game team. So, yeah, they're currently playing Big. They're currently winning against Big in that Dallas close quali. Yep. If they can go and win, like, if they go and make it to Dallas with this roster, I doubt they do, but at least picking up wins like this would be a huge deal for them. So, yeah, I think I have to give it an A.
Have to give it an A. There's a funny thing, which is like the Bleed was so dysfunctional. They now have 4 out of 5 of the players from that dysfunctional Bleed lineup, which was Nexa, Cypher, Jacob, Nock, and Hampus. And Nexa came on the air and was like, "This is we are so fucked up right now. Like, we just can't play shit." And then he was benched. They reformed it, and apparently it's working now. So it is kind of funny to me that, half a year ago this team was absolutely nowhere near working according to Nexa, and now it's perfect apparently. Yeah, maybe it's Hampus was the issue. I don't know.
All along it was Hampus.
All along. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Good move. UK CS in shambles. Endpoints are leaving CS at least for now. For the foreseeable future.
There's not much to grade. It's just a reality of how poor they were as a team. They couldn't do much. Like, they were constantly battling to be a tier 2 mainstay, and that was their ceiling with this roster. So they weren't really making any moves. So no, probably getting a bit unsustainable. I think, Mighty Max is he's half decent IGL. I just think the inability to really go out and sign better players than guys like Crucial, to find a good replacement for Surreal, kind of hampered them always. And they just need to. There's players, all these guys, probably. I don't know. It's going to be rough to see a future for them. Like, exactly how their path back to the top happens, if they can. Most of these guys have never been to the top. They never played relatively top, pro league, anything like that. Like, guys like a Zews, Sejot weren't part of that era of Endpoint. So I'm just, I'm a bit miffed. We'll see. I still think Azu has some promise. I think Sejot played some good CS at times. We'll see where it goes. But for the org, it was a well that had dried up, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think it's fair. I think it's a big shame, especially with the news that came through with ITB. I think we have. I think there's basically zero salaried teams in the UK at this point, or at least who are making anywhere near
with British players. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fnatic, British Orc, never forget. 3 majors, UK, Sweden 0.
Sweden won. NIP won a major.
I'm sure in some way they're Danish. Anyway.
All right. Well, more like Abu Dhabi at this point. Sad frame point, sad for the players. So, sucks. Big Equipa have added Pulox and Hanka to complete their roster.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about the Pulox part of it, to be honest. But Hanka, slam dunk. How'd they get her?
Goat.
No idea. Yeah. But they got her.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. They somehow managed it. I mean, Pulox, she was on Astralis, right? She's been around a while.
She is a solid player. I don't think she's ever had a single team where she was clearly underperforming or like to the point where she would be a problem anywhere. She basically came through. She was on NIP Impact for a bit, but she basically came through with Guild, which then moved to Astralis, which then got basically defunded and had to cut, had to be removed. So I think she's always been a solid filler kind of player. And I'm not sure how the rules look on this, because I know that she also has opt in the past. And she might do that again. I don't know. I don't know if Jenny or Paul. Paulie doesn't opt, but does Jenny maybe?
Bro, it's Zana's the Orpa. What are we talking about?
Oh, Zana's the Orpa. Okay, sorry. I don't know. Yeah, right. Yeah. Hanka, slam dunk. Hanka, top 3, like for 2025, top 3 in the world contender for sure.
Yeah, that part's fine. Pulox for me has always been like, you call her a solid fill player. I'm not sure who we're talking about still here. That's not how I remember Pulox from any roster. She's like, yes, a warm body with a wrist. Like, that's been my issue in terms of the fragging, at least. Not really held her weight in a lot of games, but if she's calling out of necessity, I guess I might get the move. Otherwise, it's disappointing considering they went from Giuliano and Letty, who I think are both stronger players than Pulox.
They are.
So in that sense, it's a mixed move for me. I think it's great to get Hanka on the roster. Still got a lot of threat posed by players like Zana, players like Jenny R, who historically has been very good. Like, she's been the best player on some of her teams, near enough in the past. So I think there's still a lot of promise here. I'm just, a bit weirded out by the final 5th. I'll give it a rough with the smooth. I'll give it a C+, just because I'm not sure how much of a ceiling this really shifts. I mean, looking at who Big Equipa have had on their roster historically, like they also had Kyosa before. Like, this is wild. They have a dream team of women CS almost assembled, just in their past, just right now. Not quite it.
Yeah, we'll see. All of the old teams or all of the old players are going up against each other at some point here, I think, or have the chance to at the very least. Because Eco War is here with Kyosa and Giuliano. Letty is here with Akuma. So we have a lot of chances to see who's really done the best here. Did you put a grade on this?
Yeah, C+.
C+, solid move. Finally, Johnny Speeds make an org, and there actually is something for you to grade here because the roster is slightly different to what it was before, obviously, since we've had some players leave. It is Draken, Sapek, Shine, Rolf, and then an unknown 5th. But they've been playing with Male 09. I'm not sure if that's the idea for the future, but they've been playing with them.
Draken, Sapek, Shine, Rolf.
And maybe Male 09 or somebody else.
I mean, it's pretty shit, isn't it? Like, to be blunt, in terms of if Male 09 is really on the team, maybe we've got something cooking. But otherwise, it's a who's who of forgettable Swedes. Like, like bang average play, Like, I don't I don't want to watch it. Like, there's nothing there to like keep me hooked. It's just pretty weak.
This exact roster won the Subway Superior League again over both Eyeballers and Alliance.
Fuck me! They won the
couple of weeks
Subway
ago.
Sub-Area
Just
League
saying,
Winter
just saying.
2025. Holy shit!
Just
Never
saying.
mind. A plus.
Just saying, every single Swedish team except for Medisport were here, and Johnny Speaks beat
Except
them.
the good one. Oh fuck.
Except the good, they're second best in that case.
A
They're second
triple
best.
plus. A triple
second best.
plus.
They're second best in that case, because this was Alliance with Era officially announced, and it was Eyeballers doing actually pretty decent up until this point in the off-season play, and they beat them. They beat them, and Male 09, that was like the big breakout event. That was when I picked him for prospect. So
Yeah, like if we're talking Milamines actually on the roster, as I said, I've got something to care about here. But otherwise, no. Just no.
So what's the grade?
Care.
What's the grade with the
Male
information you
09,
have?
A. Without Male 09, maybe a D. Depends on who comes in. Like, what are we talking about here? You know I don't care for these forgettable Swedish teams to the extent you do. Because I actually watched them. I watched them playing international play. I don't watch them just playing the Subway Sub-Area League, where of course they win because they play shitters like Alliance, who also never win in international play. Like, that's the problem. When you face an actual team who's not from Sweden, all of a sudden guys like Arvid turn into potatoes again. Like, it's pumpkin mode. To steal an expression from someone else, it's just they go pumpkin mode. Like, versus other Swedish competition, it's like, oh wow, they played good Counter-Strike. Cinderella's really living it up at the ball. That horse and chariot are fucking zooming. But then as soon as it hits midnight, you've got to face 500. It's like, oh no, they are pumpkins. They're getting battered. It's so disappointing and so repetitive. Trying to get excited for Swedish rosters that don't have any of the good Swedish players. Why do I care? Like, there's no Nilo, there's no Adam B, there's no Susp, there's not even guaranteed to be a Male 09. Why would I be super excited by any of this?
Yeah.
Spook's not even in Sweden anymore.
No.
He's fucked off. Like,
yeah. So that's the grade.
Sorry, Sweden. It's just true.
Yeah. Okay. Just a tidbit here for avid listeners of Retake the Week. Shine has won the Swedish Cup twice in a row with 2 different rosters as an in-game leader. Can he make the 3-peat? It's the biggest LAN in Sweden.
Yeah.
Big crowd, 1,000 people.
Jesus, 1,000 people.
Yep. I think. Also slightly chilling. Fragbite are the host of it. So yeah. Anyway, prospects.
Yeah, no conflict of interest here. Just guys, it's great. This huge cup. Go watch it. Hosted by Fragbite. I should add a subtitle of Fragbite SE under your name on screen, just so everyone knows you are a rat fuck and a shill.
I was saying it was a good event even before then.
Negotiations have been ongoing for a while. But all right, prospects of the week. Before Quack wastes our time with another Swede, I'm assuming this random name I've never seen before is a Swede. I'm going to talk about NPL, who is, still doing his thing on Bait. Bait did have a little bit of a chance early on in the year to play some bigger events. They played Blast Bounty, played G2, and lost 2-1 in fairly close fashion. I mean, they lost Inferno dominantly, but then, Dust 2 went all 24. Since then, they've been stuck grinding tier 2, essentially. But in the last week, picked up some good wins, some difficult games. I mean, sure, they got a layup, they played Alliance, but they played Parivision twice, 1-1, lost 1, 2-1 both times, against a team who are steadily on the climb back to tier 1 with Jame, with Kickit, with Dastan, with some talented pieces in Belchnok and Nota. They've actually had a really impressive week. And in no small part, thanks to an NPL, who is still calling, still fragging like crazy. Despite the team now having more firepower support with the addition of Kensizor, he's still having to do a lot of the work. He's still calling around himself to a certain extent. Headtrick also playing well, but man, what kind of IGL puts it up a 0.79 KPR whilst taking a lot of openings, whilst also actually having a lot of traded deaths, doing the entry work as well, not just doing the opening work. They're two different things, and he's managing to balance both pretty well. It's an interesting combination between him and Kenzizor. Seems they both seemingly fill that role, and yet they're still managing to win games, still managing to get each player their frags. It's something I'm going to have to dive into in the demos to really explain. But for now, all I can say is NPL keeps being one of the most valuable prospects we have on the rise as far as being a multi-tool, being, that fragger and the caller of his team. I think he deserves a little bit of a refreshed set of credit. They have had a rough time of it at the big events they've played at. Kylo got outgunned. He's having to do that same role, but against all of a sudden the Nikos of the world, the Mabs MDs of the world. It gets a lot harder, I think, to do both, and I think eventually we do see him fully transition off those sorts of difficult fights, give it all to Kenzizor, and maybe find himself more in the flow of the team, rather than necessarily just doing opening work. But man, in Tier 2, he's still got the talent to do both at the same time and win a lot of games. And here we are, another great week. Pretty impressive victories against some of these teams. Just a shame about the final loss to Parivision, meaning they are not able to play the Res Showdown. But they did play a really tough opponent in Parivision. Just to give themselves the chance, they already beat them, but couldn't win the rematch.
Yep. I just happened to be looking at the ongoing CCT group stage where NPL put up a 160 in 6 maps to go 3-0.
Yeah, as I said, he had a layup there. It's fine.
Well, yeah, Sashi and Fire Flux is still like, Bait should win, but maybe they shouldn't drop a 160. That's solid game heading into playoffs there. Yeah, staying top of Tier 2 for sure. Are Bait and NPL are very near it anyway, which is great to see because they're a nice team. And NPL is leading from the front. I don't have a lot of notes. They're doing very well. I think they lost to Parivision in something or other. Like you said, the Res.
It's the Res Open Quali. They lost.
Yeah.
They beat them, then had to re-beat them, and then couldn't do it. They got actually Kicker put up the best numbers of the series, which is just a bit alarming. But
my God,
whatever.
The real ones remember when Kicker was a star player.
Was he ever?
Berlin Major. I'm gonna
Really?
Yeah. Speaking of star players, sorry, I'm just going to interject here. While we're recording this, TNL are playing Falcons on Mirage, and Falcons had a 9-3 half. They have just brought it down to an 8-11 on the T side of Mirage. It's going to be 8-12, but TNL are making a comeback. Anyway, for my pick, I picked Dest because I've been looking at this guy for a while. He is a Swedish player of the same generation as players like Joe Cab, Upe on Alliance, and Della on Eyeballers. It's this sort of generation of players who are around about 19 years old and float about here and there. Sort of came through with the Swedish Prodigies team, which was put together at some point. He's on Viperia right now, and I've been looking at him. He hasn't done shit for ever, basically. But this week has been a fucking screamer for some reason for him. They won 6 straight maps. And I'm just going to say, unfortunately, the final has gone as it's gone. He's dropped a 150, or 050, which is the final has been concurrent to recording this episode. That's extremely unfortunate because prior to this, he was averaging a 130 in over 6 maps against Favbet, Kono, and Gen 1. But unfortunately, in the rematch, which actually mattered, nothing really happened. Solid week because I'm just waiting for this guy to do something. I'm just waiting for him to sort of break out and because we talk about Joe Cab and some people talk about Upe and Dele as well as sort of about. And so I'm sort of wondering, where's Dest? Where's is this this is basically our what were they called? What was the guy who found Nivera and Kyojin and all of those players and Misuta and all of them? Flexor, he had the Wonder Kids team which he put together for some random qualifier. This is my Wonder Kids, and I'm just wondering when this guy's going to break out. And this week, a very solid step on the way because I don't think he's ever had a run like this in his career.
I don't think so, because if he's been playing on Viperia this entire time, we'd never see him play a damn thing, basically. Because
they don't make it into the VRS.
They struggle to make it past any level of competition historically.
bit of a revolving door in terms of players as well. I think Des might be one of the longest running players on this team at this point.
It's been there since May of 2024. So yes.
Yeah.
Shockingly, but I mean, it's not the first time you've brought up Viperio Swedes historically. I remember you told me at some point, like, oh, Viperio have these 2 Swedes. And I was just like,
it's Upendest, yeah.
It's Viperio, bro. Like, what are you talking to me about this shit for? And finally, they played some real matches. Unfortunately, yes, that final did go terribly. He did have a sub 0.6 rating in the grand final that just finished, which has,
happens.
Tarnished the overall stats, because he was putting up crazy numbers going into that game.
Yep.
But I haven't watched a damn second of him play. All these games leading up to it, I've been on holiday and haven't been tracking tier 2 at all, for obvious reasons. Got better things to do on holiday. But I might use the filter of Monday to Sunday for you, just so you don't have to include that grand final on the profile when I put out the graphic.
Yeah, perfect.
It goes from a 1.3 to a 1.01 or something when you add the grand final.
That's what I based my judgment off, so I would appreciate that. I think
it goes down to.
It's nice to see. It's nice to see him sort of have this, because I wouldn't call it a breakout, but it's definitely a sign that okay, so we didn't just think this guy was talented for nothing. Because taking on Kono, especially Kono is a solid team. They are still a solid team, as much as they have made some changes. They've lost Kensisor. They still put up decent numbers. Like they're a CCT competitor team. I'm not really sure why they are.
Changes since that, but as well, they are.
Yeah,
they're as long as they have Soltovsky, who's kind of really important in Kono's game plan, and he's a real shaker and mover. He's one of those guys who kind of plays in tier 2, but has a far stronger understanding of the game than everyone else at the level, really, because everyone else at the level is either just kind of a noob who's been around forever, or is a young player who's talented but doesn't fully feel the game in terms of the little timings, the little spaces, the gaps, the high IQ moves. That's what Soltovsky seems to be just excelling at. If you ever watch the demos, he's just like, oh, it's mid to late round. I'm just going to pick off 2 people and make this round winnable, because I know where they're going to overextend. I know where the hole's going to be. I know what people don't pay attention to. Like, that's where I'm going to put myself. That's where I'm going to get a little advantage. And so, Kono is still a solid team. And that's a real win, despite the fact that Kono currently have 2 people no one's ever heard of on the lineup.
Yeah,
they're not.
And as much as the final rematch is unfortunate, of course, and not a good result, having the original win over Fabbed is also pretty big. Holy shit! Sorry, fucking Flyrax just got a 3K to win another round for TNL. Anyway, yeah, it's that's my pick, and that's been his week, and that's been our week, I suppose. Retaken.
Yeah, wasn't able to watch a lot of CS, unfortunately. Oh, such a shame. I had to be on holiday. Oh, damn. I really hated skiing for 5 days. Oh,
sucks for you.
Definitely never going to do that again.
Yeah, at least you get to watch Cluj-Napoca.
Hell yeah, bro. I've got only good memories of Cluj-Napoca. Envious for life. But all right, that's the episode.
Run it back.
Yeah, if you enjoyed, leave a like. If you made it this far, you're my hero. Sub for more content. Leave a comment telling us why we're completely wrong about everything. I'll be curious to find out. Who's a Mir fan in the chat? Who will see Mir make a comeback? Hopefully none of you, because the hell is wrong.
Tony's going to be here.
Shut up. All right, that's for you, Tony. Don't try to tell me. Don't try telling me nothing. But okay, yeah. I hope you enjoyed. We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.